Managing Director of Paragon Trust Company and tax and private client practitioner, joins us to bring a common sense approach to money in a world of total insanity. Let's welcome Tony D'Angelo.
All right, so for the past month, I think, we've had Tony D on 7 o'clock because, we had to carve out a little extra time. He has been just going crazy with this investigative reporting. Like nobody else. Nobody does investigative reporting. Well, Tony did, and he laid that out for you for 4 or 5 of the last shows. But we got him back at his normal time, 6:35. We appreciate all the work that he's done and still got a lot to talk about. Tony, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm proud to be among you guys.
So, off the air, I was just casually throwing around phrases, and one of them stuck and hit your ear, and you wanted to talk about that, which is a lack of leadership.
Well, yeah, and it goes all the way back, I think, to the Hebrew Scriptures, where, and it's when there is no vision, people will perish, and that's what we've got right now is people perishing. There's no real leadership on both sides. It's sobering, Lee, when you start to look at the economic production in this region and the unemployment rates. I mean, we're running, if we're going to take us all as one region, a 13.1% unemployment rate in this region, which is absolutely incredible. Now, the part of Connecticut, where you are, I'm north of you, but the part of Connecticut where you are, it's brutal, absolutely incredible. Of course, a lot of that is the casinos. And you ask, what is the plan? There really seems to be no Democratic leadership or any real Republican leadership. I think people come out and they try to advance the usual partisan things, but they just ain't working. And we've got no forward progress. Now, one of the things that, can start to keep me up at night is, well, what's this all going to look like in November? Well, if you look at a Joe Biden administration, and leaving aside Joe Biden and his obvious mental issues and things like that, you look down the bench and see who he'd have on his team running the critical offices. Now, you might see somebody like Elizabeth Warren in Treasury who would put so much heat on banking to where you really couldn't do anything. Now, I'm not saying that there's not a lot of banking that goes on. A lot of the policies aren't evil, but to kill them entirely is not really the answer. People can't get mortgages. People can't get car loans, things like that. You might see somebody like AOC doing energy. Well, what's to that? Kill fossil fuels. Jay Inslee, we've all come to know and love Jay being the governor of the state of Washington, who's kind of like Mr. Peebles as the whole place burns. I mean, it's like, where do you go? What do you do? Speaking to your point, there's no leadership, but I submit unto you that there's something much bigger and much more economic behind all of this. But, point number one, we got no leadership.
And when you say we're at a record low unemployment, and I've watched and listened to I'm not throwing this on you, but I've watched and listened to the left-leaning media come after Trump, and I'm not a Trump sycophant here, but calling him out for high unemployment, calling him out for this, that, and the other. The truth is, all of this, at least all of this here in the last 4 months, is COVID related.
Well, and that's just it. And the fact that whenever in our history, this is the whole thing, we've had whatever you want to call it, a national calamity, a world war, an epidemic, something with that. It's always like, well, Ford Motor Company, I remember studying this like in, state junior college and community college, in advertising, they had a whole thing. There's a Ford in your future. Think of the future. Think of the fact that the war will be over and you'll have a nice Ford sedan and the world will return to what the world was, or actually even a better world. We have none of that. All we have really is fear-mongering and praying, and praying, not pray in the religious sense, but pray in terms of, in the predatory sense. And this is, I submit there's something very economic with this, because let's look at the restaurant closures. And the thing is, yesterday our fearless leader said, we're going to pull back restaurants. Well, where does that fit on the whole thing? And the answer is it doesn't, except when you look at the money behind it. Now, there is a large economic concern called, as one example, Arcos Dorados. It's a master franchise of McDonald's. They're in 20 countries. They're run by a gentleman by the name of Francisco Staten. He used to be a Boston Consulting Group director. Again, Boston Consulting Group, people who are in the political vein have got to look at this differently than what is this out-of-state group doing here? I mean, it's like, you're so far behind the eight ball. If that's what you're still thinking, you're not getting it. This is a major, major, major economic concern who is pushing large interests to the detriment, if you will, of small business. And the biggest thing is food. Now, think of like 6 months ago, the Food Network, Guy Fieri, let's open a restaurant. Oh, isn't this great? Let's go on a food tour. Where did all that go? People get nervous, who are in big business, because if people go to these little small restaurants and, start making friends with people, what happens to us? Well, what better way to do this than to, manufacture and prolong a pandemic so we could have touch screen dining and little booth dining and things like that. So that's just one example. Healthcare is another.
Interesting. So maybe some of this is, in your mind, maybe contrived, maybe planned out?
Sure. Yeah, it's played. There's no question about it, because when you ask yourself, like we take our fearless leader, and what is he? He in our vein, yeah, he is an extremely duplicitous and highly prevaricating leader who has got a number of questionable things happening. We'll do more on that in the days to come, believe me. But in the worldview, Lee, he is a useful idiot. He is here because when he sticks his thumb in the pie and says we're not going to run restaurants, well, how many restaurants are going to close? How many people can't get restarted? And it doesn't take much. It just takes a little crack in the ointment. Healthcare is something else. I mean, in the sense that with all of the app-based healthcare, I went and I looked at everything that Boston Consulting was involved in terms of healthcare, pharmaceuticals. I mean, it's like Sonny Liston's police record, man. You've got a list as long as your arm. Vanda Pharmaceuticals, Purus Pharmaceuticals, Arena Pharmaceuticals, Checkpoint Therapeutics, on and on and on you go. I mean, basically what it comes down to is this particular, genre of people, they have this vision, if you will, of totally mobile healthcare, where the healthcare is app-based and it comes to you. I mean, honestly, Annie Lamont, I don't think she'd care if Yale New Haven Hospital burned down. It is not in her economic interest.
Eventually, the only way we're going to pull ourselves out of this sewer, or this how it's soup or whatever, is we need actually a leader, a true leader that has put either the state of Connecticut or the country before themselves. And whether we had one at the top now, I don't know, probably remains to be seen. Maybe not, maybe so. But I think we need a true leader who is all about the country first and themselves second. And when I say that, I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter who gets credit. It doesn't matter what ends up happening. It just matters that this amazing machine that was started by our forefathers 244 years ago gets back on the right track. Because I feel as though sometimes it's like we're really wobbling, Tony, and we're about to fall off.
And the whole thing is, and by proliferating fear, is there a virus? Okay, yeah. There's a virus, but can we deal with it? We've dealt with so much more, but when you start praying with people's minds, and it's like, well, you have to depend on me, your government, to do things for you. The whole cancel culture, the whole burning of the cities and all that, these people love that, because what are you doing? You're wiping out small business, which small business as a whole is their biggest competitor, and they don't like that. And yes, we need leadership very badly.
All right, Tony, before I let you go, real quick, baseball going to start?
Well, yeah, I guess of sorts. I got to get myself back into it to say that it really is going to be happening. But I'll tell you, it's like the crack of the bat to me, Lee, is a distant memory.
It's strange. It's strange, right? It's almost as if it never actually happened. There was never anything like called baseball. It's weird to me. Like, I miss it, but then again, I kind of don't. I miss it, yes, but. Could I live without it? I got a feeling I could, which is strange. I don't know. That makes
honestly,
sense.
Truthfully, and what it comes down to is that if you're these people who are, doing restaurants or healthcare or whatever, and you're pushing your big thing, and baseball's not on your playlist, you have proven to the world that we don't need baseball, and better for them, worse for us.
Yeah, good point. Listen, brother, as always, an honor and a pleasure to talk to you on Tuesdays.
I feel the same way, and best to everyone.
All right, buddy. There he is, Tony D'Angelo. You can check him out. You can email him. If you need his contact, feel free to contact me. I'll send it along, Fortress Fiduciary, but he talks about way more than just money. All right, listen, we'll